Hey Bolters, welcome back to another premium customer workshop. In this video, we cover three main things. So the first thing we go over is basically the finishing touches that you can do to your site to get it ready to scale. So we basically look at some image optimizations that you can do to reduce the bandwidth. Then we also look at sharing, so your open graph image and your favicon and things like that. The second thing that we touch on is basically connecting an analytics tool. And in this example, we're showing you how to connect Mixpanel, where you can basically add events into your app and then add properties into that. And then you can use your user interactions with your app to determine exactly how they're interacting with it and use that information to help make data-driven decisions. The final part is we deploy your app using Netlify. And here we're able to use split testing where we create two different branches of your app and we put Mixpanel events and properties onto each of these. And then we're able to publish both of them at a 50-50 split. And then the audience is able to see one or the other branch when they go into your production site. And then you can use analytics from each of those to determine which branch is more successful. So with that, I hope you enjoy the video and let's jump right in. So basically, we're going to start off by going through all the important final touches that you can do to your website and to make sure that it's ready to take it, to scale it. And then if you want to try using some database decisions to decide which are the best landing pages or what are some certain features that you may put in one branch compared to another branch. So hopefully this is helping you guys scale and feel confident about being able to scale your app going forward. So the first thing we're going to touch on is, we've got three different parts in this workshop today. We're going to do the finishing touches before publishing. Then we're going to integrate an analytics service. And then we're going to do split testing using Netlify. So let's jump on to this first part, finishing touches before publishing. So what effectively does that mean? Now, once you're ready to publish, there's a few important considerations for you to kind of keep in mind. Now, there's this, I guess something to pay attention to is bandwidth and knowing that, every time you want to view a website, it needs to download these assets from the server. And so it might be images, it might be text, voice files, whatever it may be. Images and video typically using the highest amount of bandwidth. So it's important for you to think about these. For example, if you're maybe you've made a marketplace and you want to show images of all of the listings. Now, if somebody has uploaded an image at maybe it's 2 megabytes, and which is quite large to be serving on the web, and now on the marketplace homepage you have 100 listings. Now, if every single time you show every time they load that page, if they're loading 100 different images, each of 200 megabytes, that's 200 megabytes of, 100 different images of 2 megabytes each. That's 200 megabytes of bandwidth that you've used in basically showing that site once to the viewer. So it's really important to kind of be aware about this. Inside of Bolt, you can actually have a look at kind of like some of the cloud limitations. So basically, if we come into the project settings and we come into cloud, this basically shows you what is included with Bolt Cloud. So the web hosting bandwidth is up to 30 gigabytes per month. As you start to exceed some of these limits, that's when you can change your spending limit, and you can indicate what your highest amount of spend would like to be per month. So most of the time you should be under this limit. It's only if you've got lots and lots of users that you'll start going above this, and that's when you need to start changing this spending limit. But it's a fairly generous free tier. Now, so that bandwidth is important to consider. And so what can you do about it? Well, when someone uploads an image, you can prompt Bolt to incorporate an image resizer. And basically that means that instead of that 200 or that 2 MB image sort of being used as the thumbnail each time, it could create another version of that image, which may only be 100 kilobytes. And then every time somebody goes onto the marketplace homepage and they're loading all of the listings, then now, because they're looking at these smaller images just as sort of thumbnails, it only needs to load that smaller image. If they go into like a gallery view and they do want to see a full-size version of that image, maybe that's when you show like a larger version. But still, you don't need to be doing showing a 2 MB image. A lot of the times, even 500 kilobyte will be plenty when it comes to like a full screen hero section. So that's the first part, is optimizing these image sizes. It can go one step further when you think about like image avatars. If you've got somebody's profile picture, then because that's often really quite small, maybe only 40 pixels by 40 pixels, that could drop down to maybe 20 kilobytes or something quite small. Now, with lazy loading, I've accidentally repeated pagination here, but I'll touch on that in a second. So let's just go into lazy loading for now. So this is basically images only load when they get requested to load. So say you've got a large landing page, and often, you've got your call to action at the top, and someone may load the website, and it's got lots of different sections in them. All the sections have images. You could tell each of those images in the different sections to use lazy loading. And this is something as simple as prompting the Bolt agent itself to implement, best practices with lazy loading on the web page. Because often if somebody clicks your call to action button in the hero section, then there's no reason for you have had to load an image from really far down on the page, into their browser, because they're not even going to that if they're clicking on the call to action. So that's kind of where lazy loading comes in. Now, caching is a way to basically store all the information on the user's browser, rather than every time they refresh the page having to reload all of that information. So if you've got like an app where you've got like a map view and then you've got like a discover page, and the user is like frequently jumping between the two of those, but they both have listings on them, then you can cache some of the listing information data and keep that basically, stored in the user's browser, so that each time they swap between pages, they don't need to reload that again. And then finally is pagination. So basically, if you're returning a list of, say, emails, now instead of asking the server to provide all of the results, it could just provide the first, say, 20 or the first 50. And then, often you'll see this on websites where you can basically jump between tables. You can jump between all the listings on the table. Like on Google, you might load the first 10 or 20 results, and then you can click page 2. And that basically, is a way to limit the amount of bandwidth that's used for every time you load a page. Okay, now, that was kind of optimizing for bandwidth, which is something is important to consider while you're scaling. But now, if we're thinking more about like your online presence for your app, now there's a few different considerations, and something like we'll start off with the meta title and description. The meta title and description are HTML elements that provide information about your web page to search engines and social media platforms. They help improve your website's visibility, click-through rates, and overall presence. So basically, at the top of my screen here, you can see, I'm using this app, Beautiful.ai, to create these PowerPoint slides. And you can see, like, when we look at the tab, we have some information about them. Now, also, when you are sharing your site on like social media, then when it comes up with like a little preview of how the site looks, these are all those kind of like little optimizations that you can use for your online presence. So these are things that you can just prompt the Bolt agent itself. Just you could ask it, what is my meta title and description? And whoops. And then basically it will go through your code, it will determine what it is. And then if you want to fine tune the copy to match exactly what your mission statement is or whatever your slogan is or your tagline is of your web app, it's important to try and have like one consistent brand image that your users can see. Now, coming to the favicon, this is this little image that you see up here. So when we're looking at an app, or sorry, a website in tabs, you can see a little preview of that image. So it's important, if you want, instead of just like a little globe to show up here, if you want your actual brand image to appear, then just prompt, to use the favicon. Now, the third one is your open graph image. This is an image that represents your web page when it's shared on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It enhances the visual appeal of your content, making it more engaging and shareable. The dimensions that you should use for this is 1200 pixels by 630 pixels. So you can go into like an image editing tool such as Figma. You can create a frame that's that size, and then you can basically add some brand image that you quite like, that you want to represent your brand when you're sharing. So let's quickly jump into a little project that I've been working on. So this is something called Flash Mind. The idea is that we've got a landing page here, and it's a very simple tool that what I'll do is I'll sign in. I'll give you a quick demo of how it works. It's a very simple flashcard learning app. So as soon as we log in, here we go, open app. So you can see we've created two different decks, one specifically for vibe coding, another one for Spanish. And so we can open this deck, and the idea is that we have a term. So say you're not really sure what SQL means, you can then add the definition of it here. You can save that as like a flashcard. We've also got cause, a server function, for example. Now, if you're ready to practice, you just click practice, and you can basically reveal the definition, and you can say how confident you are in understanding that definition. So this is a quick little demo of the app and how it works. Great, so we've got that. Now, for the open graph image, basically what I did was I came into Bolt and I asked it, I found the image that I wanted to use. So, I'll attach this file. This is like the image that I was happy with. So I made this myself. You can just open this and you can basically prompt, please use the attached image as my open graph image. And then I'm going to say, make sure to use the URL directly rather than a file path. Now, what do I mean by that last part, to use a URL instead of a file path? Well, basically, I'm going to come into the index file, and this basically shows where all of the these open graph images are stored and referenced, and also like the meta tags and the favicons. Now, notice I was doing a little bit of testing before, and you can see for the OG image, I've actually used an entire URL rather than sometimes what it will do is it'll just create the file path. So it might just say, slash and then have the name of the file. And the reason why that's important is the index HTML file should reference the full image URL rather than the file path. This ensures that the open graph image is able to be accessed by social media sites' image crawlers. So you may be able to reference the image yourself by sort of doing the direct file path. But when it comes to actually sharing this Open Graph image with other social sites, it's important that you have like this full URL here. So that's why I've used a prompt like this to basically explain how it works. Great. So there's a few other considerations. We've got to think about basically the like Apple devices and Android devices, and there's this feature where you can actually save a web page onto um, you can save a web page onto the home screen of your iPhone, or you can save it onto the home screen of your Android phone. And so basically, if you have uploaded specific images, it almost acts as like the app icon or the app image that basically when you're on the home page of your iPhone or Android, you can click that directly. So these are also assets that you can upload directly through Bolt and prompt Bolt to add those to your site. Great. So that's basically the, I guess, the final touches that you need to consider when you're ready to share your app. Now, moving on to the second part, this is really exciting. This is actually before I go on, do we have any questions about sort of anything we've covered so far?
Hi, William. This is Carlos.
Hey, Carlos.
It's not really a question, but I guess maybe the thought process of how I would handle the favicons and the images. I
Mm-hmm.
find Bolt to be rather annoying when it comes time to make those little modifications,
Mm-hmm.
and then now I enter a chat with Bolt, and it sucks out the life out of the tokens. So I thought about this for another application that I'm working on, and maybe the solution to something as far as updating favicons or images is to have a CMS type page that I can prompt Bolt to let me upload my own favicons, let me upload my own fonts or whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
then just have it read off of that page, and then it trickles down to everything else. I don't know if that would be a solution, but certainly I've gotten into change this image on the homepage, and it's just becomes problematic if you don't know HTML and you don't know how to change the URLs
Yeah.
and where to find them. So that's,
Yeah. No, it's
just an
such a good point.
observation.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And this is like a little hurdle that I was sort of running into when I was doing my testing as well. And I found that yeah, as I was saying before, if you don't use like the full URL here in the index HTML file, then it will often have issues actually previewing that correct image. So, and Bolt actually tends to just use the sort of direct file path rather than the full URL when you prompt it for the first time. So that's kind of why I'm suggesting, make sure that you include the full URL in your prompt. That definitely helps. But you do make a good point that maybe somewhere in our UI we can add like a drag and drop option directly for like the favicon or the Open Graph image. And I know we've been doing some testing with like design systems where you can basically, easily update your primary color, secondary colors, etc. So that's something that I'll keep in mind, and I'll pass it on to our team that maybe we can make this process a little bit clearer rather than having to go directly through the code. So thanks, Carlos.
Yeah, no problem. And another thing too, since you're directly on the index page,
Mhm.
considering that my experience, it's slightly limited with front end design, it
Mhm.
would be nice to have the proper notation from Bolt when the prompt takes place to launch the app, like to have proper notation, like I think it'd be forward slash like, and comment out like, oh, this handles the favicon for this, for the home screen or like right now it's just pure lines of code, and
Yeah.
unless you really know, I
Hmm.
like notation, so I like to see what each line of code does. It helps me to learn and it helps me to
Hmm.
execute better next time that I build. So I think and the fact is that we're using a combination of React and all
Hmm.
these other applications at once. I think it helps to have that notation to,
Yeah.
to notate exactly what it does, and where
Yeah.
we can make modifications to the index page opposed to going to
Yep.
Bolt to prompt it for that change that could be
Yeah.
very minimum, but then 300,000 tokens later, it's like
Yep.
it didn't do what you wanted to do, so it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really good point. So thanks for that, Carlos. I'll make sure to pass that on to our team. Great. So carrying on, we're on to the second part now. So integrating analytics services. So I'm sure you guys have heard of like Google Analytics before. You may not have heard of something like Mixpanel. Now, basically, Google Analytics is primarily a marketing and acquisition tool designed to show you where your users come from, such as SEO, social media, paid ads, etc., and how they navigate your site at a high level. Mixpanel is a product analytics tool focused on what users do once they're inside your application, offering granular tracking of specific actions like clicking a subscribe button or completing a tutorial to help product teams optimize user retention, feature engagement, and conversion funnels. So that's a lot of words, but let's actually kind of do like a quick dive into how something like Mixpanel actually works. So what I'm going to do is um, basically I have it in another window, so I'm just going to have to change sharing my screen. Just one moment. So I think we should all be able to see my Mixpanel dashboard now. So basically, when it comes to setting up Mixpanel, this is kind of what you expect when you first have a look at it. And you can see there's no data that's coming into it at all. But the way to set it up is we can come down into basically set up Mixpanel like this. And it's a very simple process. They've made it as easy as possible for a tool like Bolt. So basically, we can just go into Quick Start. And what I've been testing out is this new kind of use AI. We click on this and it creates a LLM agent prompt for us. So basically, in this prompt, it explains, okay, we need to install Mixpanel. It adds our kind of like user name or our sort of like authenticated account details, and then, or the project token, which you can see down here. And then it explains how to do the setup. So basically, we copy this agent prompt. And then what I'm going to do is jump back into Bolt. So let me just, I'm going to have to change over to my other window. One sec. You should see my other window now. Now, come back into Bolt. And basically, what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're just going to paste that prompt that it gave us. And then we're going to send that off. So I did this. This is something that it used to be, a multi-step process to get all set up, but because Mixpanel has now added in that LLM prompt directly, it makes it really simple. So what we'll do is we'll let this run its setup here in Bolt. I'm just going to change over to back to my Mixpanel window. And so basically what happens is while Bolt is working on that, once we're up to the next step, what happens is we click on this verify connection, and there we go. Connection has been verified. So basically that means it's now receiving data directly from Bolt, and it's able to kind of like pay attention to some of these events that you can listen to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that. And then if we listen, we can see that we don't have any events. just yet. So what we'd do is we'll come back into Bolts. I'm just going to change my screen over. Great. So we come back into Bolt, and basically it's just confirming that we want to set this up all good. I'll read the page. I'm going to swap over to Opus. And so now we'll just continue let it doing its thing. And Mixpanel is incredibly powerful. It's also a really good free tool. So basically, I think it's the first 1 million events either per month or per year, but it tracks 1 million events for free before you need to start paying. So it's a really good tool to get started with. I think it gives startups like 12 months to use their free plan. I can mix panel. Here's like a quick little dive. Oh, I want you to set up a demo, but basically it's sort of data. It helps you make data driven decisions. So you can monitor all sorts of things. You can monitor, like the click-through rate of your landing page. You can monitor which features are being used and which features are not being used. And so basically it kind of works by it has what's called these events. And so every time you can basically add like an event tag into any of your buttons or your components. And then anytime the user interacts with any of those, that can trigger an event. And then within that event, you can add a variety of different properties. So you can, say you've got two different variants, you can have your control, component, and then you can also have your test component. And by having a different property, clicking on the control version may set off the event, but then depending on which variant you have, it could add in different properties. And then you can basically come into Mixpanel and see who's been interacting with each. So let's come back into Bolt and we'll see where that's going with the setup. So it seems like it's done a pretty good job. Mixpanel Analytics is now set up. That app will automatically track page views and user interactions, record user sessions, and then replay 100% of the sessions. You can kind of go in and customize the session replays. It'll identify users when they sign in, track sign up and sign in events with relevant properties. So it's kind of had a first pass at what it thinks are the important metrics to set up. So basically, let's come back into the landing page. What I'm going to do is I'll log out of the app itself, and notice that when we've been logged out of the app, the landing page basically says start learning. And so basically every time a user like loads this page, then it should track a session in Mixpanel, basically saying that, okay, there's an event that the user has basically started, with this experience. We could then say we're not sure which one gets more traction. We've got the Get Started button and then the Start Learning button. I can then say, please create a Mixpanel event called Call to Action. I would like you to add this to both the Get Started button and the Start Learning button on the landing page. Please add unique properties to either of these so that I can tell which the users are clicking on more often. So let's send that off and we'll basically see how well Bolt does at implementing Mixpanel here. So basically we're asking it to add, they will both trigger the CTA event, but hopefully they should have different properties added to each of them. So if we want to look more fine-tuned into the code, we're going to remember this is called get started. So we can come into code, we can search get started. And so here we can see exactly where in the code these buttons are. Sometimes it doesn't. I find it hard to see exactly where it highlights. Here we go, on get started. So what it's going to do is it's going to go make these changes. So there we go. It says done. Both buttons now track the call to action event with these two distinguished properties, button location header. So basically what I can do is, copy that property that it's just been telling us. We're going to paste that into code. And we can see on the landing page, it's been applied in one instance. It's not actually scrolling down to reveal where exactly it is, but I can see that it has been added into the page. So now let's test this. What I'm going to do is we'll publish the page. Great. So while we're letting that set up, often it takes a minute or two for, actually, here we go. They've come through pretty much immediately. I find that Mixpanel is usually about a minute behind when you actually interact with it. So basically, you can see it's started all of these, it's created all of these events based on the interactions that we've had with it so far. Oh, apologies. I just realized I've been talking about my Mixpanel dashboard and I haven't been sharing that page. I'll quickly jump over back into the Mixpanel dashboard again. Here we go. So here we go. If we're looking at all the events that have come through, you can see that, 2 minutes ago, we started a session recording, and then all of the properties that we've added into this basically show in here. Now, sometimes this can use a little bit of fine tuning. Notice that it's created so many events like session recording, checkpoint, session recording, checkpoint, element click. So potentially we've got some duplicates here of events, which is potentially unnecessary. If we're trying to, optimize the amount of events that we're basically drawing information from, we don't want to be duplicating events that are potentially unnecessary if they're sharing the same information. So that's where we can come back into Bolt and say, please look carefully through all of the Mixpanel events that you are initiating. Make sure that we're not duplicating any of them. So we'll send that off. Oh, and yeah, let me jump back into Bolt. So, as I apologize about me having to jump between these windows all the time. I had to actually set up a new Mixpanel account, which is why I can't do it in my tabs here, because we have a company one that's linked and I can't disconnect it. So now let's come back into the preview. And what we prompted before is we've got the get started and we've got the start learning. So we'll pay attention to the time. It's right on where I am. It's 11:05 now. And so we'll load the page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Get Started button. So hopefully it's been able to track that. So we've clicked it once. Now we're going to click it. I'll just reload the page. We're going to click it again, Get Started a second time. We're going to press back. We'll reload the page. We'll press it a third time. We'll go back, reload the page. And now let's try the start learning. So just remembering we've clicked Get Started 3 times and Start Learning once. So hopefully, as I said, we sort of need to usually give it like a minute or two to come through the Mixpanel, which we'll check on in a second. Now here we can see that it didn't find any duplicates, which is really good. The 2 call to action calls are intentionally the same event with different button location properties, and that's the correct Mixpanel pattern. So that's good, maybe because we were loading the page so many times before. That's why it triggered all the Mixpanel events. But let me jump back into our Mixpanel dashboard. So we're back in here now. And basically, let's refresh this. You see it was updated 3 minutes ago. If we update it now, let's have a look and see which events have come through. Okay, so 1 minute ago, we've had a lot, haven't we? So I can see one call to action. Now, this session recording checkpoint, this will often show up a lot because we can do these things called session replays. Now, this basically protects all of the content of the page and the user's identity. And this basically is a way for you to review kind of like how users have been interacting with your app without really revealing anything about them. Now, depending where you deploy your app, it's important to kind of understand the privacy implications of a session replay. I think, if you're deploying to Europe, I think you do need to maybe make it clear in like your terms of service that, you are monitoring metrics like that. That's something where it's worth like looking into and basically understanding the privacy implications of this. But I think Mixpanel basically sets it up in a way so that you're not revealing any of the user's like private information. And so most of the time, because it's kind of keeping that personally identifiable information secret, it's not too much of an issue. But it's worth double checking and looking into. So here we can see all the different session replays that we're doing. And you can come back and basically sort of, it's a really good way to kind of understand and gauge how users are interacting with your website. Maybe they're pausing on a certain page for 20 seconds and it shows that, okay, maybe they're trying to comprehend all that information on the page, or maybe they're confused by something. So this is kind of like a really good way to learn from data. Now, let's come back in, and what I'm going to do is let's refine the events and let's try and find the specific event that we made. Now, I notice it often takes a minute for them to like appear in the filters, sometimes up to 24 hours. So that's why we're not being able to filter it right now. But I'm just going to manually look through and we can see, so we've got one call to action here. So if we expand that out, and then you can see everything that it's been able to learn. These are kind of all the properties. Mixpanel has a certain kind of like predefined set of properties. So for example, like knowing what browser you're using, knowing, the location, understanding the operating system. These are all kind of insights that Mixpanel automatically determines. We've also got sort of screen height and width as well. And then we've also got your properties. So these are the properties that we actually added into the event ourselves manually. So we can see the button location has been added as hero, and that's exactly what we prompted Bolt to add. So this is basically saying that this call to action button was using like it had the hero positioning. Now, what if we come down and let's see if we've got another call to action event, and you can see this time we can see that the button location was from the header. Now let's scroll down. I can see I've got another one here, call to action. This one was from the header as well. And then one more call to action down here, it should be the header. So there we go. It worked perfectly. We've got basically 3 clicks of the header and 1 click of the hero. So what you can do is you can basically create new like insights, where if you wanted to create an insight, I think you can basically prompt these yourself. So, or let's come into the starter board, and let's say you want to like create your own kind of like dashboard. You can basically say you This takes a little bit of getting used to, but you can like add elements in here. So you can add content. You can use Spark, which is basically like their AI that basically helps create these dashboard kind of like insights themselves. And you could say something like we'd need to actually remember the name of the event. So here it is, call to action, and then button location hero. So I'm just going to copy this and then just remember button underscore location. We come to here and let's see how well Spark works. Please help me understand the breakdown of the different properties of the button location or the call to action event. We'll generate this. Sometimes Spark works really well, sometimes it doesn't. You can always go in and kind of manually configure the dashboard yourself. But let's see how well it's there. There we go. It's done pretty well. So now I'm going to save this, and now it's added as soon as it loads. It's added that query that we had directly here into our dashboard. So now, say going forward, every user that uses our site, every time they click a call to action, we'll be able to see who clicks the header and who clicks the hero. And if we only want one going forward, which is a better placement. And this is like a great example of how you can use like data and metrics to kind of like help like understand what is the most engaging parts of your app. Now, what if we want to take this one step further? What if we want to do a complete A/B test of different branches? So let's swap back over to our Bolt project. Now, here we are. We've got our Bolt project. We've got our metrics set up on those buttons. Now, we're going to use Git branching. Now, before we do that, I'm going to quickly kind of like jump into Netlify and explain kind of like the combination between Netlify and Git branching. So first of all, we've got to make sure that we've connected our Bolt project to a GitHub repository. Notice that it's called Flash Learn. So this is very simple to do. You can just sync your GitHub and then it just creates a repository. Once you've done that, you can come into Netlify, which you can also, on a free plan, basically create an account. And then if we want to add a new project, we can say import our project from GitHub. Now, because we've already connected our Netlify to our GitHub account, we can basically search for Flash Learn, which is that repo that we've just set up. So here we go. We're going to click into this repository. And now it's asking us basically to create a project name. So we're going to call it Flashcard Learning. That's not available. Here we go. Flashcardlearn.netlify.app subdomain is available. So we're going to go with that, Flashcard Learn. We're going to say it's going to deploy from the main branch, which we're happy with. A lot of these actually kind of auto-populate. And notice I'm not actually having to change any of these. Now, it is asking us for environment variables. So this is where I come in, and you can do this a variety of different ways. I find it easiest to just import from a .env file. So we're going to click on that, jump back over into our projects, go into our env file. Here we go. And I don't actually need that. That was just a test, but this is what we normally use for a connected Supabase to our app. We've got these two sort of like private variables in our .env file, which can actually be public facing. So we've got Veet Supabase URL and Veet anon key. Both of these are kind of meant to be client side. So I'm going to copy everything here from the env file. I'm going to paste it in here, and then we're gonna deploy it. Now notice it's asking us secret. Does this contain secret values? Now, your typical reaction would probably to tick it and say yes. However, because both of these variables are supposed to be public facing, it's actually good to leave this unticked because then it means different browsers are able to access it. And then when it's compiling, it doesn't cause any like confusion. So if you do have like um, another secret, such as like a API key, like say your OpenAI API key or a Gemini API key that is supposed to be secret, or if it's your Supabase service role key that's also supposed to be secret, make sure that you're not adding them in here while you're initially deploying your app. So here, let's deploy. So it's going through all of this, project deploy in process. Now, the big benefit of deploying with something like Netlify, which while it's deploying, I'll quickly show you. If we come into project configuration, we can come down into here into split testing, and we can hit activate branch deploys. Now, to do this, we need two different branches. So that's really not hard to do here in Bolt. We'll just come back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Git branch from the main, create the branch, and we're going to call this test lander. So we're going to create this branch, which basically forks everything from the main branch, duplicates it, and this is where we can kind of test out our new landing page. Now, it says we've swapped to test lander. We can double check this by looking here, and we can see that, yep, test lander is now our active branch. So let's say, okay, maybe we haven't been getting as much engagement from our landing page as we expected. What we can do is maybe let's prompt it and say, the landing page isn't as engaging as I expected. I think it's because it's too spaced out and the information isn't dense, full stop. Also, it's not showing any testimonials. Can you please improve the landing page to include this? So here's a very not super well thought through prompt. Obviously, you're going to give it a bit more thought than this, but this is just an example. Now, we'll let Bolt do its thing. Notice that it's on our other test branch here. So let's jump back into Netlify. Let's have a look and see how well that deployed work, how well it worked. So here we go. Flashcard learn. It looks like it's been deployed. Now, I'll give you a quick little overview of, if we go into the slides, split testing using Netlify. Netlify is a popular hosting platform for static websites and serverless applications known for its ease of use and powerful features. It provides a streamlined workflow for deploying and managing web projects, offering features like automated builds, build in SSL, and global content delivery network. So when we press publish within Bolt, when we come up here, we're actually using Netlify under the hood. So we chose them as our partner because they've done such a great job scaling and they offer a lot of things. So effectively, when you do publish with Bolt, you're still using Netlify. However, we have abstracted away some of these settings that maybe we thought isn't super necessary. Anyway, another thing to pay attention to in Netlify is, I guess so, yeah, here's the process that we've just gone over. You save your project to GitHub. In Netlify, you import the project from GitHub. And then the third thing is to disable auto deploy. Now, maybe you want to keep auto deploy on, which can be fine. But at the moment, the way Netlify kind of default deploys is every time you make an update or you push a commit to your main branch, what will happen is Netlify is able to basically see that you've made a change to your app and it will deploy it automatically. Now, basically, that's good if every single change you make with the Bolt agent is exactly what your live customers you want them to see. But it's not so good if you're iterating different features and you want to keep your published sort of environment separate from what you're working on. So basically, I can come into deploy settings and say you want to deactivate that. It's got continuous deployment. So you can, somewhere here in settings, basically configure it so that it doesn't automatically deploy. Trying to automatic deploy. Trying to remember exactly where it is. Deploy. We're just in here. It's in here somewhere. Let me. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of looking through. I'm blanking exactly where it is right now, but that's an important thing for you guys to pay attention to. Let me come back into the app and let's see how well Bolt has done. So here we go. Here's a completely different landing page that Bolt has configured. And, maybe it's a little bit more condensed. It has maybe more of a focus on testimonials like we asked for. And so now we have this on our test lander branch. So basically what we can say is, let me just trying to think how to phrase this. I'll let Bolt know. I'll say, we have just created a new branch and it has a new landing page. I would like to set up, actually, let's change this. I would like to modify the properties inside of the call to action events. Actually, I'm going to specify that they're Mixpanel events so that these are different from before and indicate that I'm on the new landing page. So basically what I'm asking it to do, because we had set up Mixpanel on the main branch, and then we created a new branch from that, it effectively carried over all of those Mixpanel events from main into this new branch so that I imagine that this header call to action and the hero call to action both still had the same properties as they did when we were in the main branch. However, now, because we're actually prompting them to add new properties, what we now should be able to do is we should be able to launch this alternate landing page on a different branch. And then because they should now have different properties, we should be able to monitor all of this within Mixpanel. So let's say both call to action events now include landing page version v2, distinguish them from the original landing page in your Mixpanel analytics. So great. Well, what we'll do is now let's update that. So I think it should have already saved. Now, if we come into our deploys, you can see that, yeah, when our agent finishes each of its prompts, it basically creates all of these. It basically shows all of the commits here. Now, if we want to set up our split testing, we come into split testing down here. And what we're going to do is let's do a 50-50 split. Now you can see we've got our main branch and then we've also got our test lander branch. By default, it's gone 50-50, and let's say we're happy with that. We can add another branch if we had another branch, but right now we're just going to do two. And now we're going to start test. So basically what it should have done is deployed this so that both of these branches are now live, and this split test is running, as we can see. So what I'd like you to do now is let me grab the URL, and I'm going to put this in the Zoom chat. So let's copy this. And then inside the chat, I'm going to paste that URL. Now, if you guys don't mind, feel free to click on that. Notice because we added the open graph image that we can actually see that image when we're sharing it here in Zoom. So you guys should be able to click on that. And I'm going to jump over into Mixpanel and just have a look and see at some of the events that are coming through. Here we go, Mixpanel. So now, hopefully you guys have had a chance to open up the URL that I just shared. Now, some of you should have seen the original landing page and some of you should see the new landing page. Now, feel free to, let's quickly have a look. What I'm going to do is I'm going to update these events. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Now, it looks like fantastic. From the cities, I can see we've got someone in Denver, someone in Hamburg. We've got some more, someone in London, someone in Frankfurt. Isn't this incredible how like within a minute or so, you can basically see where all of these sessions are rolling in from. Now, what I want to do is basically I want to refine the events specifically to the call to action. As I was saying before, sometimes the event filter, it takes 24 hours to actually show up, which is kind of annoying. But once it does, then you're able to use it going forward. I'm just going to have to manually go through each of these call to action events so far. So I can see from Denver 1 minute ago, we're going to open this. We're going to have a look at the properties and we can see. So basically here we go. We've got the hero event. Now, I assume that whoever this was probably got the original landing page because it didn't actually add that second property saying V2 landing page. Let's have a look at this one from Hamburg. Here we go. So we can see that the additional property that we got Bolt to add to it says landing page version, and now it says V2. So I can pretty much assure you that whoever this was dialing in from Hamburg, Germany, was able to see that second version of the landing page that we created. Oh, there we go. Erica in the chat. That's you in Denver.
In Denver.
Great. Thank you. Let's see if we've got some other call to actions. We've got another one here from Germany. I think that's potentially the same person. Clicking twice. You can see how many events have basically rolled through. So you can actually disable the session recordings. I find they're useful, especially if you've only got a small amount of users to start off with. As you increase the amount of users, I think you're allowed maybe 10,000 session recordings a month. So as you start to scale, maybe you need to reduce this from 100% down to say 10%. And that will basically reduce the event count here in Mixpanel in case you don't want to go outside of the free plan. But basically, I think what we can see is we've got a working version of, what I'll do is I'll just stop sharing my screen. So what we've got is we've got a working version. We've been able to create, a branch of our main app. We've created a branch. We created a separate landing page where we're able to add our Mixpanel events into that other landing page. And from there, that's how we've been able to, if we configure our Mixpanel correctly, that's where we can get our insights, and that's where we can really learn about which landing page is more successful, which has a higher click-through rate. And you can apply this as far as your creativity goes. You might be testing out a new feature, or you might be testing out how buttons look, or adding a filter, or whatever it may be. You can get as creative as you want, and as long as you add these Mixpanel events with their properties, you're able to then come back into Mixpanel and then use some of that data to make informed decisions about how to iterate your product going forward. So with that, it brings us pretty much to the end of the workshop. that's all I had for you guys today. So I hope it's been useful. I know the first time I looked at Mixpanel, I actually found it pretty intimidating. But you can obviously kind of see the benefit and the power of it. So yeah, really hope you've enjoyed this session. Happy to go on. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I know Erica's been doing a really good job answering questions in the chat. So thanks there. But if anyone wants to ask, I see we've got a question from Zero. Let's have a look. Erica's answered that, so thank you there, Erica. But yeah, if anybody has any questions and you want to ask directly, happy to stay on for another few minutes. As always, with these recordings, we're going to publish it to our YouTube channel on Friday if you want to watch it again. And then also this PowerPoint that we've created, I'll also export that as a PDF. And then if you ever want to revisit, you should be able to find a link to that in the YouTube description. As always, the Luma feedback is really helpful to us to help gauge the impact of these workshops. So feel free to leave some feedback on Luma. And then also a big thank you to Erica. Let's all say thank you so much for being here, Erica, and answering all the questions that we've had in the chat. Always very helpful. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Great. And with that, I'll see you guys all next week. So just to give a little context, next week, we're trying a new format with our workshops. Instead of doing, a new project each time, we're actually going to kind of build on each of the workshops within February. So over the course of 4 different workshops, we're going to start off really building out a project in week 1. And then week 2, we're going to use that same project and add to it. Week 3, we're going to add to it even more. And week 4, we should have something published, ready to go, completely deployed. We're going to be focusing on different skills for each of these. So if you miss workshop 1 and 2, don't feel like 3 won't be relevant. We're really putting an emphasis on making each of the workshops standalone, but they will be building on the same project. So really excited for that. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all next week.